And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Aviation Weather Outlook on this Tuesday, April 15th, 2025. And there's a lot to talk about. Setting things up, this is going to be the outlook Wednesday into Thursday. However, as of this Tuesday morning, we have an area of low pressure that's approaching the lower portion of the Alaska Peninsula. This is a rather strong low with a broad circulation, a lot of moisture with it. In fact, an atmospheric river will be working its way northward and impacting areas of the Northwest Gulf along the Kenai, Prince William Sound with a lot of moisture, mainly in the form of rain. Meanwhile, strong winds and wet snow. We have winter storm warnings for the eastern Aleutians. That snow will spread northward and come across Kuskokwim and the Yukon deltas, including places like Bethel. See a burst of snow and wind, so that'll be coming here, especially later this Tuesday evening, night into Wednesday. But the system has a lot of things going on with it. We have strong winds, and then there are also again, areas of moderate to heavy rain and snow going to be a factor. So when it comes to the winds, on the backside, we have gale to storm force winds, mainly out of the northwest. And then ahead of it, winds are going to be southeasterly. We have the threat of turbulence all along a broad area. I'll show you here near the end of this presentation. But along the Alaska Range with the upslope southeast winds, we have IFR conditions Wednesday morning, IFR conditions Prince William Sound, Western Gulf, all the way down through Kodiak Island, the Alaska Peninsula into the far eastern Aleutians, and then further north. Broad area of IFR conditions, less than the way, though, of active weather there, just lower cloud cover ceiling issues. St. Lawrence, all across the Seward Peninsula, the Chukchi Sea coast, Brooks Range, and up along the Arctic coast. For Wednesday afternoon, we find, and this time of year with the diurnal fluctuation, we tend to get visibilities and ceilings lift a bit during the day, so we anticipate at least some relief out here in the Alaska Peninsula, though I still think there may be more in the way of some areas of IFR there yet tomorrow afternoon, just given the fact this low is going to cross up into Bristol Bay and then eventually weaken and lift up across the lower Yukon. Back here across the Gulf, we have increasing moisture coming in on southeast-south winds with that atmospheric river. IFR conditions along especially the south and eastward facing slopes of the Alaska Range, all along the Gulf Coast from the eastern Kenai, Prince William Sound, through Yakutat and into the northern Panhandle. And again, we're also going to have winds increasing through these areas, including Anchorage Hillside area, which has a high wind warning in effect. We have some sort of wind warnings or advisories will be in effect for the Alaska Range. And then come Thursday morning, here's that stream of moisture pulling up into the northern Gulf. IFR conditions all along the Gulf, up into the Copper River Basins, Wrangell, St. Elias Mountains, IFR central, west arm of the Alaska Range, all across the Brooks Range, much of the west coast, southwest coast, and still lingering in areas of the Alaska Peninsula. Also, as the system comes inland, the southwest interior is going to see initially a burst of snow tonight into early Wednesday, then mix with rain. It's going to be rather sloppy as you go up the Yukon and the Kuskokwim basins. And as that moisture continues to transport northward, it's eventually going to lay down a swath of snow along the Arctic coast combined with the polar easterlies. So there's going to be blizzard to near blizzard conditions developing for Thursday into Friday morning along areas of the far north, just as a heads up. So you want to take care of some things here along the Arctic coast, especially tomorrow, Wednesday, when the weather conditions are much better and safer. But then for Thursday afternoon, we find, yes, along areas of the Arctic coast, especially, say, from Point Lay on over to Kaktovik, there'll be IFR conditions due to some snow and blowing snow that could lead to near or blizzard conditions. We also have IFR conditions along the east-southeast facing slopes of the Brooks Range, and then here throughout, scattering in the Alaska Range along the Gulf Coast. So it's going to be an active weather period here through this week with that particular storm system. Anaktuvik Pass will be IFR becoming MVFR there in the east central Brooks Range. Same thing, Adigan Pass, IFR early Wednesday becoming MVFR. Down across the west arm of the Alaska Range, Lake Clark, Merrill, IFR. Not a go. Rainy, also IFR. Windy, IFR. As we go east Isabel, IFR may get into some MVFR conditions, but through these passes, there's going to be strong gusty winds and potential for some moderate to even locally severe turbulence. Mentasta, MVFR, and then as we go down to Tanita Pass, IFR conditions, south of the pass. But through the pass, generally MVFR on Wednesday. Portage Pass will be stuck in IFR conditions as front and moisture increases there across the western, northwestern Gulf. And Chilkoot and White will start out Wednesday MVFR and then become IFR. So as I was mentioning the other day, we didn't have much in the way of warmer air aloft coming in, but it's very clear now, as I was indicating, we're going to get quite a dome of warmer air out ahead. So the low is pulling back up into this position here for Wednesday morning. Ahead of it, look at this surge. We have warm, moist air, 6, 8, 10,000 feet there just south of the Gulf. This is continuing to work its way northeastward ahead of the system. There's an occluded front, so that'll pinch off some of it, but nevertheless, that's what's helping to feed that atmospheric river right up along this region. There's going to be some very heavy rainfall along the eastern Kenai around Prince William Sound, and then you get up in the higher elevations of the coastal mountains. There will be a very heavy wet snow associated with that. On the backside, cold air, eastern Aleutians, and up along areas of the lower Yukon Delta there Wednesday morning, wet snow with very brisk northeast to north winds. So the threat of icing is pretty extensive on Wednesday. Now keep in mind, this is by afternoon, things later, the latter half of the day moving north and east. So initially be focused in this region, and then as things move further north and east later in the day on the afternoon hours, early evening, we find widespread moderate icing potential in any thicker clouds or precipitation producing clouds. Here in the Yukon Valley, there are going to be some kind of lead areas of lighter precipitation or just convective like rain snow showers, but the main band of precipitation with the front down here across southwest and into the Gulf, and especially Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound. Anything above 6,000 feet, the further south you get, because you saw the way the freezing levels rise aloft. So you have higher freezing levels down here, lower Gulf, east, southeast of Kodiak Island. So your icing will be higher up at 8,000 feet plus. And here is a pretty neat example of a amplified trough ridge pattern, a very notable ridge from the North Pacific, with the axis coming up into the northern panhandle and the Yukon territory. This is an anticyclonically curved jet core we have on the east side of it, winds to 135 knots in through western central Canada. This is what's out ahead of the storm. This is the trough, the deep trough where the surface low is sitting in this region. Ahead of it we have winds 120, 125 knots from the southwest at 30,000 feet. When you get these kind of winds aloft, it causes the air to rise. That's why we have all this precipitation breaking out around the storm. Backside, winds not quite as strong. We have a wind max 95, 100 knots out of the north across the central Aleutians, but very sharp trough there over the eastern Bering. And taking a look at things at 9,000 feet, this is 700 millibars. Look at the wind field across the lower Gulf, and especially just south of there into the North Pacific, east-southeast of Kodiak Island. There's winds of 80 to 85 knots from the south-southwest. You take these kind of winds, push them over the mountains, through the mountains. That's why there's going to be a lot of turbulence, as well as high wind warnings. As I mentioned, Anchorage hillside, Chugach Mountains there, high wind warning. Also likely for the Alaska range. On the backside of this mid-level low circulation, we have winds 50 knots there above Dutch Harbor and the tip of the Alaska Peninsula, and also some winds 45, 50 knots way out toward the near and west of Adak. Now, here at the surface, this tells a better story. We have low pressure circulation just south there at Cape Newingham, in just west of Bristol Bay. Strongest winds out ahead. We have the front lifting north, so we have a barrier jet. There could be storm force winds here in through the area around Hinchinbrook Entrance, Kayak Island, Cape Suckling. So, and then you forcing those winds through Turnagain Arm, and also the wind field will be lifting northward through the day, Wednesday into Wednesday night and Thursday. So it'll also be hitting the Alaska range beyond this time frame. And you have strong core winds 50 to 65 knots from the North Pacific entering the lower Gulf. So this is that feed of moisture coming north. Backside storm force gust across the eastern Aleutians, 50, 55 knots. So obviously, turbulence will be a problem Wednesday over a broad area. First, ongoing north-northwest winds, St. Paul down into the eastern Aleutians, the low center coming up like that. So there's kind of a little, winds not quite as strong, certainly not near the low center. But then we have the fronts that are working their way north and eastward. So there will be isolated severe turbulence across much of the area, Bristol Bay, upper Alaska Peninsula, Shelikof Strait, especially Kamishak Bay entrance to Cook Inlet. Also the area, eastern Kenai, Hinchinbrook entrance to Cape Suckling. And as those winds continue through Turnagain Arm, high winds, say, mountains around the Chugach there, around Girdwood, on over toward Anchorage, and then as they hit the Alaska range, you'll have those southeast winds coming through the gaps over the ridgeline, so surface to 15,000 feet. But along the Gulf here, with that front, watch out for low-level wind shear, and that surface to 6,000 feet. Further back to the west, the turbulence generally falling in that surface to 4,000 foot range, but certainly this is going to put down air traffic in these areas because of this storm for at least the next day or so.